Surrealism. The Surrealism was an artistic and literary movement that emerged in the early 20th century, aiming to explore the unconscious mind and unleash creativity beyond rationality. Led by figures like André Breton and Salvador Dali, Surrealists sought to depict dreamlike imagery, juxtaposing unrelated elements in surprising ways to provoke thought and evoke strong emotions. Surrealist artworks often feature fantastical landscapes, bizarre creatures, and symbolic motifs, inviting viewers to interpret their meanings freely. Romanticism. The Romanticism art emerged in the late 18th and early 19th centuries as a reaction against the rationalism of the Enlightenment and the strictures of Neoclassicism. It emphasized emotion, imagination, and individualism, celebrating nature, the sublime, and the exotic. Romantic artists often depicted dramatic landscapes, turbulent skies, and awe-inspiring natural phenomena to evoke a sense of the sublime and the ineffable. They also explored themes of nationalism, folklore, and mythology, celebrating the spirit of freedom and revolution. Realism. Realism is an artistic movement that emerged in the 19th century, primarily in Europe, as a reaction against the idealized and romanticized portrayals of life. It aimed to depict everyday subjects and situations truthfully, without embellishment or idealization. Realist artists often focused on the lives of ordinary people, depicting their struggles, joys, and environments with meticulous detail and accuracy. Minimalism. The Minimalism is an art movement that emerged in the 1960s, characterized by extreme simplicity and a focus on fundamental elements like geometric shapes, basic colors, and clean lines. Artists sought to strip away excess and decoration, creating works that emphasize pure form and presence. Minimalist art often invites viewers to engage directly with the physical qualities of the artwork and the surrounding space, encouraging contemplation and reflection. Renaissance. The Renaissance art was characterized by a revival of interest in classical Greek and Roman art, leading to a focus on realism, perspective, and humanism. Renaissance artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael created works that emphasized accurate depiction of the human form, lifelike expressions, and spatial depth. Their masterpieces, including paintings, sculptures, and architecture, reflected a renewed appreciation for the individual, nature, and the pursuit of knowledge. Baroque. The Baroque art characterized by dramatic use of light and shadow, intense emotion, and rich, detailed compositions. Baroque artists aimed to evoke powerful emotional responses in viewers, often employing dynamic compositions and theatrical effects. Religious themes were prevalent, with artists seeking to convey spiritual messages with heightened drama and intensity. Expressionism. The Expressionism was an art movement that emerged in the early 20th century, primarily in Germany. It aimed to convey emotional and psychological experiences rather than physical reality, often through distorted or exaggerated forms and vivid colors. Expressionist artists such as Edvard Munch and Ernst Ludwig Kirchner sought to evoke intense feelings and explore themes of angst, alienation, and inner turmoil. Abstract Expressionism. The Abstract Expressionism was a post-World War II art movement that originated in New York City in the 1940s and 1950s. It emphasized spontaneous, intuitive, and emotional expression through abstract forms and gestural brushwork. Artists such as Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning, and Mark Rothko were central figures in this movement. Abstract expressionists often explored themes of individuality, the subconscious, and the act of painting itself, rejecting traditional representation in favor of conveying raw emotion and inner experience on canvas. Fauvism. Fauvism was an early 20th century art movement characterized by bold colors, spontaneous brushwork, and simplified forms. Artists like Henri Matisse and André Derain were key figures, emphasizing emotional expression over realistic representation. Cubism. The Cubism was an influential art movement pioneered by Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque in the early 20th century. It revolutionized traditional artistic representation by breaking down subjects into geometric shapes and depicting multiple viewpoints simultaneously. Cubist artworks often feature fragmented forms, abstract shapes, and a flattened perspective, challenging viewers to rethink how they perceive space and form. Classicism. The Classicism refers to a movement in art and literature that draws inspiration from ancient Greek and Roman cultures, particularly their emphasis on harmony, balance, and order. It emerged during the Renaissance and experienced revivals in various periods, including the 17th and 18th centuries. Classicism prioritizes clarity, simplicity, and idealized forms, rejecting the extravagant ornamentation of preceding styles. Artists like Jacques-Louis David and Nicolas Poussin are renowned for their classical works, which often depict heroic or mythological themes with a sense of timeless grandeur and dignity. Symbolism. The Symbolism was an artistic and literary movement that emerged in the late 19th century, primarily in France. It emphasized the use of symbols and metaphors to evoke emotions, dreams, and spiritual experiences. Symbolist artists, such as Gustave Klimt and Odilon Redon, sought to convey abstract ideas and inner visions rather than represent objective reality. Symbolism often featured dreamlike imagery, mythological motifs, and richly symbolic content, exploring themes of mysticism, spirituality, and the subconscious mind. Op art. The op art, short for optical art, is a style of visual art that uses optical illusions and geometric patterns to create the impression of a movement, depth, or distortion. It often employs contrasting colors and precise, repetitive shapes to stimulate the eye and mind, creating a dynamic and sometimes disorienting visual experience. Futurism. The Futurism was an avant-garde movement that emerged in Italy in the early 20th century. It celebrated modern technology, speed, and the dynamism of urban life, advocating for the rejection of traditional artistic forms in favor of embracing the future. Artists like Umberto Boccioni and Giacomo Balla depicted motion and energy through fragmented forms, dynamic compositions, and vibrant colors. Dada. Dada was an avant-garde movement that emerged during World War I, originating in Zurich, Switzerland. It rejected traditional artistic conventions and embraced absurdity, chaos, and anti-establishment sentiments. Dadaists like Marcel Duchamp and Tristan Tzara used collage, found objects, and performance art to challenge the rationality of society and the art world. Dada's legacy lies in its subversion of artistic norms and its influence on later movements such as Surrealism and conceptual art. Art Nouveau. A late 19th and early 20th century art movement embraced organic forms, flowing lines, and intricate patterns. It emerged as a reaction against the academic art of the time, seeking to integrate art into everyday life through architecture, interior design, and decorative arts. Inspired by nature and exotic cultures, Art Nouveau artists like Alphonse Mucha and Hector Guimard aimed to create a total aesthetic experience characterized by its sinuous curves and ornamental motifs. Impressionism. The Impressionism was an art movement in the late 19th century characterized by capturing the fleeting effects of light and atmosphere through loose brushwork and vivid colors. It focused on depicting everyday scenes, often outdoors, with an emphasis on conveying the artist's impression rather than precise details. Key artists include Claude Monet, Edgar Degas, and Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Post-Impressionism. The Post-Impressionism was an art movement that emerged in the late 19th century as a reaction to Impressionism. Artists associated with Post-Impressionism, such as Paul Cézanne, Vincent van Gogh, and Georges Seurat, built upon Impressionist techniques while pushing the boundaries of color, form, and expression. They focused on subjective interpretations of reality using bold colors, distinctive brushwork, and innovative compositions to convey emotions and ideas. Rococo. The Rococo was an artistic movement that flourished in Europe during the 18th century, particularly in France. It is characterized by its ornate and playful style, featuring delicate pastel colors, asymmetrical compositions, and lavish decorations. Rococo art often depicted scenes of leisure, love, and frivolity, reflecting the aristocratic culture of the time. Neoclassicism. The Neoclassicism was an artistic and architectural movement that emerged in the 18th century as a reaction against the excesses of the Rococo style. Inspired by the ideals of ancient Greek and Roman art, neoclassical artists sought to revive the classical aesthetic of harmony, proportion, and clarity. Rejecting the ornate decoration of the Rococo, neoclassical works emphasized clean lines, symmetry, and a return to classical subject matter, such as historical events and mythological themes. Mannerism. The Mannerism was an art movement that emerged in the late Renaissance period, primarily in Italy during the 16th century. It is characterized by a departure from the balance, harmony, and naturalism of high Renaissance art. Mannerist artists deliberately distorted proportions, exaggerated poses, and employed intricate compositions to create a sense of elegance, sophistication, and intellectual complexity in their works. Modern art. The modern art encompasses a wide range of artistic styles and movements that emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, breaking away from traditional forms and techniques. It includes movements like Cubism, Surrealism, Abstract Expressionism, and pop art, among others. Modern art often explores new concepts, materials, and techniques, and can be highly experimental and diverse in its expressions. Precisionism. Precisionism was an American art movement in the early 20th century known for its precise, detailed portrayal of urban and industrial landscapes. Artists depicted scenes with sharp lines, geometric shapes, and smooth surfaces, capturing the modernization and industrialization of America. This style often emphasized the beauty and order found in architecture, machinery, and infrastructure.